Welcome back to the Neighbors Podcast. I got to talk today with Bella and Sal. They are married and incredible witnesses of how to worship in the middle of the hard. Lots of times in their life, they have experienced hard things, and currently they are faced with these two things. They are struggling with infertility, and they've taken the step into foster care and being foster parents. And so they talk about what it looks like on a day-to-day basis to hold the grief of not yet holding their own baby and the weight of caring for another person's child. And how do you work from the middle of that to still believe that there is purpose in the pain? It is incredibly challenging, incredibly inspiring. Their rootedness and their transparency in their marriage and what toll this has taken on their marriage is, I know, going to impact people who are going through similar circumstances. And so I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. I know that God has such an incredible plan for them right now and for their future. And I love to be a cheerleader on the side, watching them not yet on the other side of their miracle, but still praising God for what He's done in their lives thus far. So here's my conversation with Bella and Sal. All right, Bella and Sal, welcome to the Neighbors Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We go back a few years. It feels like just yesterday you walked into our living room for a small group, Bella, and you and Sal were just dating at the time, and we didn't really know if you actually existed. She said, like, my boyfriend plays professional baseball, and we were like, does he? No. No, we believed you existed, but then you came eventually, and I'm just so excited that you guys are here. Your journeys are so inspiring. In both hands, you hold this journey of fertility and wanting to start your own family, and through that, becoming foster parents. And separately, these two things are complex and layered and full of sanctification and challenge and incredible beauty to it. And so you're doing both, and how those come together. We have a lot to talk about today, and it's going to help a ton of people. I know it is. Before we get there, I want to know about the 5:30 a.m. cold plunges, Sal, that Bella has told me you do every morning.
Yeah, it's something I started probably a year ago, just listening to podcasts and all the good things that come from it, the benefits. And now I think I'm addicted.
So why do you do it?
Honestly, more so for the clarity, and just obviously when you get in, it's a hard part of your day, right? So I know anything after that, there's nothing that's going to be harder than me getting in a cold plunge at 5 in the morning.
If you can do the hardest thing at the beginning of your day, then the rest of the day, all the hard things just don't feel as hard. You just think back to when you were miserable in a bath of ice.
Yep.
Okay, so do you literally like wake up and get in the pool?
So kind of. I mean, things have shifted a little bit. I started now getting up at 4:30 to make quiet time a priority. So I do that.
That's literally the dead middle of the night. I'm in deep REM cycle at 4:30.
So middle of the night, I wake up at 4:30. I go in the garage, do my quiet time, and then hop right in the cold plunge. So just back to back. And
nothing says get close to the Lord like spending time in His Word and then time in an ice bath.
Torturing yourself.
Well, I'll tell you, when you get in the cold plunge after quiet time, it's like you're really quiet now.
I mean,
2
truly,
minutes of sitting
the
in
Lord
the cold.
speaking.
Yes.
Okay, so then Bella, you go in then at 4:45 right after he's finished.
I don't even hear the alarm go off. Actually, I'm not a great sleeper, but I will say I kind of know what time it is when I wake up based on if Sal's in the bed or not. So if he's not in the bed, it's okay. It's like between 5 and 5:15. That's like how I.
We're still sleeping, but
yeah. So no, I use the cold plunge on occasion, but not that early. And yeah, it defeats the purpose that I like for it to be hot outside, so that I feel that I can get in there without dying. And yeah, so I like for it to be as easy as possible.
Right.
So I'm not a true cold plunger. I use it because we have it and I like it, but
it's still hard. Even the easiest, even making it easy, it's still the worst.
Exactly. And I don't feel bad about it.
You shouldn't feel bad. No. Okay. Well, yeah, it's no secret that the two of you are not afraid to do hard things. And that's really what we're talking about today, is just the journey of hard, and where you find lightness to it and hope, and where you find some brokenness and how you've worked through that. So take us back to when you decided, okay, it's time, we want to start trying to have a family of our own, and then what it kind of looked like from there.
Yeah, Sal was still playing baseball when we kind of started thinking that season might end soon. And we didn't have like this big serious discussion of like, here's what we're going to do. This is when we're going to start. It was kind of like, well, let's just stop not trying and see what happens. And we weren't super concerned at first when it didn't happen because he was still traveling and, you know, timing is important. So it wasn't until almost a little under a year later that I started to think something's not right here. So yeah, once that started happening, we did consult obviously doctors and start seeing what was going on. So kind of a year in is when it started to feel like our circumstances became more clear of like, there's definitely some roadblocks that are very apparent, that we just don't know what's possible. So it was a lot of navigating a lot of doctors, and that stuff just takes a lot of time. So we never like gave up on continuing, obviously, to try to have a family, as we still are in that mindset. But yeah, it's just been sort of information gathering for so long, and now somehow 2.5 years have gone by. So then, yeah, obviously the emotions come later, I would say. About around that year mark is when it started to become kind of scary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the hardest part about your fertility journey?
Everything about it, honestly. It takes its toll on you mentally, right? Because, I mean, our purpose on earth is to multiply, right? Be fruitful and multiply. So when that's something that you're not able to do, it's a struggle. It definitely eats away at you because, you know, your whole life you're like, I can't wait to be a dad, right? I can't wait to be a dad. And then when it hits and you're going through it, you're like, man, like, why? Why is this happening? You know? So it definitely is very, very tough to walk through.
Yeah, I think once you, I think it's kind of hard to understand if maybe you don't want children yet or ever, but once you have that desire, it's very strong.
It's there. I mean, that's soul level.
And it's kind of like, I don't know, I think about there's no other relationship in life like there is a parent to a child. So it's not something that you can like replicate. You can't really like get a taste of that desire anywhere else. So I think it steals so much joy because all these things in life that I'm sure people who deal with any sort of tragedy, like losing a loved one, probably can understand a little bit more, like things that are supposed to be happy, you know, like let's say you have a family member get married and like you're missing that. It actually amplifies that person that you want to be there that's not there. So I think with infertility, once you've really kind of been all in on like, this is what I want with my life, and then every day you live with will, not only like when will it happen, but will it happen? It can just really like suck the joy out of everything. So, and I know with talking with others that they very much can relate and kind of express that similar feeling because they don't want it to steal the present, but it's a battle. You can battle against it, but it does steal a lot of that joy. Yeah.
Sal, I would love to hear, I feel like through what I've experienced with friends going through similar situations, a lot of times the husbands can feel the burden to be strong for their wives and to care for them because the wives are carrying so much of the weight of it. And then the husbands don't really have anywhere to be broken. Have you experienced that? Or what could you offer to maybe the dad or the man going through like wanting to be a dad, but not knowing like, you know, I want to be strong for my wife, but I'm also hurting.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely want to be strong for them. And I think if you have other friends who have gone through this or friends that are Christians, it's easier to talk to them about it, right? I know for us personally, I think the hardest thing for me was, you know, I knew I couldn't fix it, right? So like, I'm a fixer. Like when stuff's wrong, I want to fix it. I want to make things right. So seeing her struggle and go through it, it was really, really hard for me to sit back and say, okay, I can't do anything. Like she's got to get through this. Like she needs to pray. She needs to, you know, lean into God here because that's the only way she's going to get through it. And then no matter what I said, I felt like it was hard for me to help. And like, I would be there and like try to encourage her. And it's like anything I said, I felt, again, it just made things kind of worse.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's a God-sized hole. Like, only he can fill it. So I think for
That's
the
a good
man,
way to put it,
it's
yeah.
hard. And like you said, it is important that they try.
Yeah.
Because the woman does bear a lot of emotion. But yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think for me, it was like I wanted to be strong, but I would talk to some of my buddies and then I would really get it out. Like, I'm really struggling with this. You know what I mean?
So having community to be able to be that safe place for you to let it all out is super important.
And I think as men, we don't want to share that type of stuff, right?
For sure.
We don't. We're all want to be strong figures, and it's really hard to share that. So I think community and just having those, covenant friends that you talk with all the time, like to be able to share that, because it does help when you get it off your chest and talk with people.
So in your marriage, where have you seen, we talk all the time, at least at the church that we go to, about marriage is a covenant. And where have you seen in this journey that you've had to lean into the covenant part of marriage instead of the I feel amazing and in love with you every day part of it?
Yeah, we do have to do that every day. And I think, firstly, acknowledging that we have to do that now was a very difficult conversation to have. And since we've had that conversation, it has allowed us to like just be more real with each other about it. And I think one of the things in the covenant mindset is like when you have this security that there is nothing that could break us apart, even though we may not be the spouses that we want to be for each other right now, we definitely have a baseline security of like, I will never get to the point where I'm having this emotion of like, wow, like Sal might leave me.
Sure.
Which when
That's
you're
huge.
Yeah, when you're struggling with every aspect of your life, like having that security, knowing that we both have that perspective of marriage, like I don't for a second, that doubt never creeps in, which is, I think, as a baseline, no matter how bad it is, like that is so necessary. And that's how God designed it. So like not just knowing it, but believing it, I think is huge for us. And then the feelings, like people talk about it, I used to get, it is a pet peeve of mine when you're getting married and everyone's like, oh, just wait. I'm like, well, that's encouraging.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
You mean congratulations?
Right. Yeah,
This is
exactly.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
So as Christians, like we do love the blessing of marriage. And like, I don't have that perspective of you just wait. It's going to be so hard. Like we just don't accept that. That's not how God designed marriage. Like it is supposed to be this partnership that brings joy and like not completes you, but like it does.
For sure.
I don't know. It helps you just live fully to how God designed life. So, yeah, we don't have always the feelings that we want to have right now because we are each holding a lot of grief, and that often comes out as anger. And we truly are different than we were 2 years ago. Like as people, our personalities are day to day, like we are not the same as we were. So it's kind of like, how do we take care of our marriage when we're still trying to take care of ourselves? So the covenant part of just not there, we don't use the D word, we don't even think about, that's not an option for us. So we both have the desire, which we've talked about. We want to have that feeling of attachment, not the feeling of detachment, which transparency, like that is something that we are struggling with in this season. So like, just being able to admit that like the vision we have for our marriage is the same, and we're not going to beat ourselves up over the fact that we're not doing it yet, but we're just going to lean into what God says. And we don't do that perfectly, but it does heal things. Like it can change, so that's kind of the hope that we hold on to.
That's so good. I think what you said is so important. It doesn't matter what hard season it is you're walking through. If you can experience that tension of, okay, we have been brought to this point of desperation and we know we will never leave each other we are committed to this, the same vision, then you just think about all the decades to come in your marriage, what that sets you up for. Because what a place of stability you can operate from, even when everything else feels shaken and unstable, knowing we have a God who doesn't fail us, and we have a marriage that is built on something way stronger than ourselves, built on the covenant of God, which is so powerful. Sal, anything you would add to that?
No, I mean, I don't think I could back up what she just said, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's every marriage is going to have a struggle, right? And I think when you're going through something like infertility, like it magnifies everything. When you do get into a fight, the fights are way more. It just amplifies everything, and it makes it a lot harder to fix that, right? Because again, you're going through your own struggles personally, and then you have to come back together as one and try to talk over that. And again, it's like what we talked about earlier is I'm going to hold stuff in because I'm trying to be a strong male, and she's going to be
let it
out and need it more, right? Yeah. So it's just, again, you're trying to work through things without trying to make it walking on eggshells all the time, you know?
And what you said, Bella, I think is so spot on, is you said we're walking through grief, but it often comes out as anger, where I think there are probably people who can't recognize that even if you're up here and you're mad about something, actually the root down here is this God-sized hole we're both trying to reconcile and war against, which when you can name it and say, okay, I'm mad about this, but what I'm actually heartbroken about is down here, this journey that we've been on. So talk to us a little bit about how infertility is its own kind of grief.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've been learning a lot about grief, and the physical aspect of it is interesting to me. I really enjoy understanding the whys behind things. So I don't understand these huge emotions that I'm having, and that bothers me. So then I get more angry. So it's like, what is going on? And I recently learned that anger is a emotion that covers. So and we kind of talk about that at church. Like biblically, this does make sense. But underneath, our bodies are very smart. They're going to try and preserve and survive. So if you think about if you've ever felt depressed or even just really upset to the point where you're feeling debilitated, you don't want to get up. Everything feels hard. Nothing feels joyful. So you're paralyzed. So you're not producing anything. So that's not helpful for survival. So you can operate with anger. You'll probably operate more. You'll just be angry. So our bodies will revert to anger to keep us from feeling the pain that will debilitate and have us not produce, which, that's why, the enemy uses laziness, all these things that are not how we are designed to live out every day. So that to me, it kind of goes back to what we talked about, what is so hard about it. And it's just, no matter what it is that you desire, if it's a family, if it's what it could be, even in singleness, I think people may relate if they are just begging God for a partner in life. If he puts this desire in you and you're so sure that he has, and then you don't get it and you don't know if you ever can, every day is just this wondering and this just going through a day where I came to a point where I don't want to just I've told him this, I don't want to just take care of me and you. So now every day that I'm taking care of me and you, I'm bitter about it. This is no longer what I want. I want more. And even though what I want is a biblical, godly thing, I do need to get over it, because I can't let my desire for something that I think would make me feel more comfortable take away from whatever God's asking me to do today. So it's just a mental battle that you can't describe. And then from the female's perspective, it's probably things that you would even think of, what does it feel like to be pregnant, to feel a kick, to have, to be able to see the picture of your baby, to surprise your friends and family. So I remember when I decided to tell my family that we were struggling, it was so hard because I was like, I'll never be able to surprise you. It just steals all these things that you imagined you would have. So we've I mean, I have gotten over some of that, but it seems like every time there's something to get over, like something new comes along. So it's just constant.
So where have you found some nuggets of hope in that?
First of all, telling people at first, I have the personality that I will dissociate from things and I will hold it in and I will just carry on. Not healthy. Don't do that. It is self-preservation, honestly, though. And telling people, I mean, you know that we love community and like, at first it's like, is this TMI? Like, you know, like I get, it's kind of weird to maybe tell certain people, but when people know that you're struggling, that alone gives you this comfort that like, okay, they don't know what to say, but at least they know.
Yep.
And I don't have to be fake. Like I can just go about my day and they just know that underneath here I'm like struggling, but that helps.
Yep.
So leaning on other people has shown me like, I don't know, there's just so much more to life than just me and my problems. Yeah. So it
gets you out of yourself a bit.
It does, yeah, because you cannot just this inward focus on yourself, this selfishness, like that's sinful. We're not supposed to be so concerned over our desires and like it's important to find out what God's asking you, of course, but like we can be, I mean, speaking about myself, can be so selfish and self-centered.
Same.
But as far as hope, like one of the things we talked about at church recently is not looking for the reason of the pain or the reason for the pain, but the purpose for the pain. I know that sounds very cliche, but like, I'm sure we'll talk about this later. I don't think there's any chance we would be foster parents if this didn't happen. Yeah. So that, and then also realizing this is not the first, obstacle we will face in our life. And God has revealed a lot of truths in my heart that are ugly about what I really believe about his sovereignty. And every day, I was waiting for when I would cry. Every day I just pray, like, I just want to really trust you, like, actually, and not just say it. Yeah. And I want, like, my body and my emotions to reflect that. So it is like this refining, you know, over and over again. And when I think about it like that, it makes it so much easier to like see the light in it, you know?
Sal, anything you would add?
Yeah, it's so crazy, like the different perspectives. Like for me, it's like where I find hope is, you know, I feel like I want to look to what's to come, right? So I just think about, you know, when we do have a baby and we're blessed enough to have a kid, like how loved that kid's going to be, right? From the family, because everybody knows, like, I just kind of look at that and then I just think about the story moving forward. Like, think about Bella and I have always been people where I feel like people are drawn to us, right? And we're always having good conversations with people. And I just think about the conversations we'll be able to have with people that are going through that in 10, 15 years. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to be able to encourage guys who are going through it, like how to get through it and on the other side, you know? So I think that's where I kind of find hope is like, all right, God's obviously, you know, putting us through this for a reason, right? Yeah. And to come out on the other side and be able to help people through that, I think is going to be so awesome to do, you know?
For sure. Well, and one thing I just love about the two of you is you haven't seen your miracle. And it's so easy to tell people's stories and tie it up in a ribbon at the end and say, but then they got it. And now you can speak to the faithfulness of God, where your willingness, and Bella, we've talked offline often about God's putting it on your heart to share in the middle, which is kind of hard for you.
It's very hard.
And,
I'm like, why do you make me do all these things?
But I think it's so powerful for people to see. And it's not just people struggling with infertility. Like you said, it's people in seasons of singleness, people with, I don't know, an injury that's put them out of their dream of what they want to do, or
chronic illness,
loss of anything, illness, and being able to, from the middle of it, say, okay, God, I know I'm going to have hard days, but I also know there could be purpose for me in this. And how do I navigate it? Not perfectly, but with a surrendered heart that honestly just wants to glorify God, which is so powerful. Yeah. So taking the turn as you were on this journey, where did foster care come up in it?
Me.
Yeah. I mean, It's honestly weird. I feel like God puts things on your heart like early on and you don't know why, but I've always had a dream of when I do have a kid, like I always wanted to adopt a son that was the same age so that they could grow up together, playing sports together and just like have that friendship. And then when foster care became a thing, I was like, I never thought about fostering. Like I've always wanted to adopt. And honestly, being in it now, like I think it's amazing. And I think more people can be open to it. It's not.
Yeah, we're just regular people. We don't have any like I think I see foster parents. I'm like, oh, they must like, I don't know, have always wanted to do that, or they must have this certain circumstance, or they must have had someone in their family, or they were whatever. So yeah, we don't really have that. Like, there's nothing special. But actually, through the church that we go to, we had like, there was no big conversation. It was just kind of like, oh, the church is hosting an interest night about foster care. Like, I think I'm going to go. Is that okay? She's like, sure. So I went, well, it was virtual. I attended and I'm like, whoa, like had no idea.
Just you though, not Sal.
Yeah, he wasn't able to go. So I was like, let me just like we don't want to like just be unrealistic and like jump in like and act like this is going to be this nice, beautiful thing. So I'm like, I just don't really understand like the basics of it, the process, like no idea. So first of all, that was so well done. They answered like all of the questions that you have as someone who has no information perfectly. So that really set us up for like, then there's actionable items. There's like actual materials they give you. So we
love actionable materials.
Like, tell me what to do.
Yes.
Okay? So we didn't decide like right after that, like, okay, we're going to do foster care, but it was more of it was a real conversation now of like, okay, this is what this would actually be like. He kind of was like, you know, if you want to do it, like, I don't know, like, you know, unsure, but like not against it. Just like, are we really going to do this like right now?
I mean, that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah. And I remember clearly, it's really cool when you get a clear answer from God, because that doesn't always happen. And I was taking a shower. I don't know. Sometimes I just talk to God.
Always in the shower.
Right?
Yeah.
Of course. Okay.
I feel like because it's like the one time we actually slowed down. We don't have our phones. And God's like, yeah, I'll use this.
Exactly.
See, that's why the cold plunge is
cold
great
plunge.
in the morning. I'm
You're
telling
inspiring me back to the cold plunge.
Yeah, totally. I had not a fear. I had some hesitation about, am I wanting to do this because I want a family so bad? Because foster care that's not the point. The point is get them back to their family. So I just didn't want to go into it with a selfish mindset. And I wanted to understand, like, is this impulsive or is this like really what you're asking me to do? Because you're nudging me, but I just want to be careful here. So then I just was like, can you please just tell me if I'm supposed to do this? And it was like head to toe goosebumps, just like overwhelming, like stop doubting it, like just say yes. And I was like I can't explain it, like, as that's the only time it has ever happened to me. So I know people explain some of those like experiences. You can't really understand unless it's happened. And so I just told him that happened, and I was like, the classes to get our license are coming up like next week. Like, should we just do the classes, and then if we don't take a placement, we don't have to. And so that's kind of, once we showed up for the first class that we both knew, like, yeah, we're doing this.
Then it was a tornado from there.
Yeah, now here we are.
Okay, so then you went through the classes. Then what was it like getting your placement?
It actually takes a few months to get your license. And that's why we've actually encouraged a lot of people who have an interest to go ahead and get your license, because it doesn't mean that you are saying, yes, I'm going to take a child. It just means that you have the opportunity to. If something arises. So it takes a couple months to do the classes and get a home study. We did that about a month, I want to say 3 to 4 weeks after we got our first call for a placement, which we accepted, obviously. So, I mean, that was our first, we just, I don't know, went right in.
Any hesitation, like when you, when you've got the call?
Yeah, because they knew nothing about this child. So we really are careful. We don't want to say yes to a child and then them have to go somewhere else, because that's very traumatic. Sure. And like, we just want to be careful with that. So there was just so little information. We were and you don't have time to pray about it. I mean, you can say a quick prayer, but like, it's
you have
not,
to give them an answer.
Yeah. So they gave us about 20 minutes.
Yeah. But
20 minutes.
But realistically, when they called, it was more than one. They wanted us to take, more than one kid. And we just,
Oh.
So
again,
yeah,
we
actually
weren't-
that was kind of a back and forth because
Yeah.
we couldn't take that many. So we thought actually the opportunity wasn't there. And then they called back and said, okay, we placed 2 at about 1. And so it was kind of a emotional tug of war because it was like,
Wow.
yeah. And
Do
then
we
we were like,
do
oh
it?
no. And then yes. And then
And that was 6 months ago.
yeah.
almost 6 months
Okay.
ago.
And then he was at our house in an hour and a half or something
Yeah, you
like
don't
that.
have a lot of time. It depends on the situation, but yeah, we only had a less than 2 hours before they dropped him off.
And which we're going to be sensitive about how much we share about him, of course. So if you can't answer this, it's okay. But did you get an age you weren't expecting, or like what in your mind were you like, we're going to get a baby, and then, or like how did?
You can state your preference,
Okay.
or what your home is set up for. We have our preferences 0 to 5, but I was very clear. Please do not omit calling us for other, because if God tells me to do it, we're going to say yes.
Sure.
So that's of course always what happens. So yeah, when he came to us was 8. So yeah, that was not what we anticipated.
Yeah.
But so that there was a conversation about that. But we just felt like we were supposed to do it, and we know now we were definitely
For sure.
we were definitely supposed to say yes.
So what has been the hardest thing about being foster parents or being with the foster care system?
I mean, I don't even know how to answer this clearly, to be honest with you. I mean, there's a lot that's hard about it, right? There's, dealing with past trauma, trying to get them reunified with their family. And for me, it's been, I guess for us, I should say, it's been great to love on him and just show him, the love of Jesus, right? But ultimately, our end goal is to get him back to his family. So I think that's the hardest part is, seeing how great he's been doing, and then knowing all right, well, what happens when he goes back home? Are we setting him up for success for later life, So I think it's the future of it, not the unknown of what's going to happen to this kid when he goes home.
Yeah.
It's definitely trying to go through every day like this is just a normal day when you have no idea how many are left, and then you're trying to plan. And this is kind of nitty gritty, but let's say that they have a birthday. Do we plan for this birthday? Are they going to be here? Do they want a party? How are they going to take that? Are they going to like celebrating with different people, or is that too much? It's just a lot of little things.
Lots to navigate.
And so exactly what he's describing, I think, is kind of summarized in trying to balance attaching to the child, but detaching from the outcome. Yeah. And that is emotional gymnastics.
Yeah.
Because really, we talked about that earlier, you'll kind of detach from things that can be painful. But when you detach so much, you become a distance person, and it's harder for you to be emotionally available. So you have to be careful that they deserve attachment. They need to learn that they can trust loving adults, that they are loved. So you can't let that fear of the future bleed into your relationship with them, which is, any parent, I'm sure, is shielding their children from things, and that I'm guessing it's similar to that. But it's just a little more complicated.
Way more layers of complexity.
And also,
for sure.
we've never been parents. So, also there's that. I'm
right.
I don't know how school works. I know nothing. That's been really
now you're an expert.
funny. Yeah, seriously. I know a lot of things I wouldn't expect I would know now.
Sure, yeah. So how have the two, the battle with infertility and entering into foster care, what is the crossover? Where do these things intersect? Daily or just in generals?
Daily.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's hard because I am very attached to just caring all children. My nieces and nephews, I just love them so much. So it's easy for me to attach. That's not really a problem, but it's hard when you're suffering with something that's related. It's I'm not his mom, nor am I trying to be his mom. I'm trying to be a loving adult and a caregiver in his life. So, days where I'm wondering if I'm ever going to have someone call me mom, you know, and then having to go like act like it's all good. Like it just amplifies what's already there. But I will say it's very fulfilling because I feel like God gave me this unconditional love for kids. And it's like my biggest fear with the infertility was like, my gosh, like I don't want to waste my time. Like I tried the whole let's try and like be very comfortable and not stress so that my body can have a baby. That's not gonna work. If God's telling you like you got to do this thing, because I did get not pushback but caring friends like, are you sure you want to do that? Like you're trying to start yours, and like if you're stressed, like it's not good. And I'm like, I'm stressed because I'm sitting here idly having a job that is great, but it's not what God's telling me to do. And so the second you say yes, even if it's harder, it's stressful, but it's a purposeful stress. So it's not that I don't think it affects me to my core like it did when I was like wondering if just this gift and desire God gave me was being wasted and like not used for him.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What would you say, Sal?
Yeah, I mean, I think we both knew, you know, we want to have kids, and we both are the same way with our nieces and nephews. Like we love being around with them all the time. And I think we're at a place where, you know, we have a beautiful home. We have space for kids. Like there are so many kids out there that need to be loved on. So I think it was like the perfect opportunity to love on kids and kind of fill that hole of, all right, you know what, we are going through this, but we can still love on people while we're doing it. So I think it was just like the perfect
mutual.
Yeah. Perfect opportunity.
This is, maybe this has no relation, but the two of you are former very high level athletes, still current athletes. Let me not take away from your former washed up. Yeah. Does either of these journeys, how does it play into your natural competitiveness, want to win nature? Is there any of that tension there?
I think it's just like what I was saying earlier about like, God, why do you ask me to do hard things? I don't know. Maybe that's actually me, that I just don't say no to stuff. Like
you're just prone to hard things.
And just like the not being complacent. Like I think it's torturous if I feel like I'm not doing something important. Like that is so torturous to me. And it's hard because my idol is comfort. So like, well, of course, it's like these things battling back and forth, you know? So, I mean, I can see how that would play a role for sure. But also the control. Like, I can, if I need to run faster, I can do this. And like, then I can time myself. So, I mean, talk about letting go of control. Like, if you want to learn how to let go of control, just become a foster parent. Because it is, nothing is up to you. Nothing.
So true.
Yeah, I mean, you said it earlier, like people who have gone through past injuries, like my career ended with a bad injury. For me to, again, get ready for this stage of life. And I feel like if I never would have went through that pain, like this would have been a lot harder than it is, right? It's still hard, but I think there are so many times when you look back at stuff you've gone through, you're like, okay, wow, now I know why I went through that, you know?
For sure.
And it's even with like us and how we met and everything, like there are things that happen. I was like, oh, God had it for a reason, you know what I mean? For us to meet and be able to do what we're doing now. Yeah.
It's come up a couple of times, and I just want to circle back. We've talked a couple of times about the selfish nature of us as humans and how we can get so wrapped up in our circumstances because it feels big because it's right in front of us. It's all we see. And I love what you said about when you step outside of that, you just realize like, oh, the world's way bigger than me and my problems. I would love, because that applies to literally everybody. It doesn't matter what you're going through. Wes and I talk all the time. If we're, talking about something we're going through or friends going through, we're like, we just need to go like volunteer somewhere. We just need to go like
do something,
live outside of ourselves for a moment. And then it will give us better perspective. Can you just talk to that a little bit more about how you've seen that play out, especially going to foster care? I mean, that's like the most selfless thing.
Definitely. I think like you said, the tendency to internalize. It's not healthy at all. And even actually, listening to past episodes from this season of this podcast, I feel kind of dumb complaining about the fact that this is our struggle when you're seeing people who can't use their legs. It's like, it really does just remind it. It's a constant reminder that like we live in a broken, fallen world. And like I said earlier, this will not be the only hardship that we deal with in our life. I don't know what the others will be, but that's just how, unfortunately, God didn't design for it to be this way, but it is. And I think the community factor plays in there. But reaching out, like being more aware, that's why I think you need to tell people, like being more aware of what's going on. It takes your eyes off of you. But I think ultimately, like it should all points back to God. All of it does. Like ultimately, like the only way you can look outside of yourself and care about someone else's hardship genuinely is if you understand like God's love for you. So I don't know who says it, if it's our pastor or someone, but like you don't follow Jesus because he makes life better, but because he's better than life. Yeah. It really is like that, a picture of that in our everyday life. So yeah.
Can't back that up.
She said it all.
She said it all.
Okay, last question, because we've talked about a lot of hard things, but I still see you guys have some fun in your life, and God is still a God of enjoyment and fun, and we can hold that simultaneously with hard things. So where are you finding pockets of fun and enjoyment?
I know.
Well, do you know what I'm going to say? I don't know what I'm going to say.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Oh, let's play a guessing game. You say, no, Sal, you say what you think she's going to say.
I was going to say, just honestly, being in foster care and like doing fun things with him has made everything
more fun.
Like
kids make everything more fun.
They do.
Doing anything. Like, well, the other day, he's been dealing with some stuff, and so I'm just trying to figure out, all right, how do I get him to get some of his anger out? So like the other day I let him, we have a construction zone right outside our house, and there was a piece of big drywall right there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go grab this, and I'm just going to let him beat it with it. So I let him get a baseball bat and just like beat it. And I'm like seeing him have enjoyment out of it. I'm like, this is exactly, I looked at him, I said, did that make you feel better? And he was like, yeah. He's like, it made me feel so much better, but it's like.
So I was going to say DDR, which is related. Do you know what dance stands for?
Do I? Yeah, throwback, but let's bring it back.
Yeah. So, we don't want to like rely on video games and like screens, but DDR is great because it stands for
your
Revolution.
Body.
You probably have to Google it if you don't know what it is, but you're trying to dance and hit the arrows. You've seen it in the arcades and
Is there like a newer version, or are you doing like the 2000? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I found my old Xbox from like 2005 or something like that. And
so he loves it, but we love it more. We have 2 mats, and it's very fun. It's competitive. But I was going to say we've, back to the community, like trying so hard to keep our door open because, again, we will just isolate ourselves and we will be miserable and pity party. And like don't do that. And it's not God glorifying. So we started this new thing with our disciple group, Sunday Hangs, and it's like we've realized most people are pretty much don't have much going on Sunday, and that's a time where like schedule isn't really an issue. So we just have like, we'll send a text like our door is open from whatever this time to this time. You can come for a minute. Nobody has to bring anything.
Oh, I love that.
You can come for the whole time, whatever it may be. And so that's been really enjoyable, and DDR is a part of that.
Obviously. Wow, that's inspiring me. That's such a good idea.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't happen every week, but
I love that you know where your shadows and edges are, and you're saying, okay, if we make this a weekly thing, then we can't shy away from it. We have to do it.
That's why we lead a disciple group, because we're like, we need the accountability to be there. So if you're struggling, just start a disciple group.
Just lead the thing.
Yeah.
Well, Bella and Sal, I can't thank you enough for sharing all the stuff you're going through. We are praying, we'll be praying for you, and can't wait to have you back on the podcast when you are on the other side of your miracle, giving testimony to all that God's done. But right now, you're still giving testimony, knowing his faithfulness, and it's going to encourage a bunch of people. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Neighbors is produced by Logger Creative and Taylor Minning. Music by Austin and Lindsay Adamak. Artwork by Wesley Parsons. And motion graphics by Robbie Burns.
Living to love life. I'm living to love life. mercies every morning. You never shy away.